I never thought a simple favor would turn my world upside down. When my daughter-in-law, Amanda, asked if I could take her broken phone for repair while she was sick with the flu, I happily agreed. Jake, the technician, and our family friend for 20 years, started the routine checkup, but his face suddenly went pale. Pulling me aside urgently, he whispered, "Elisa, cancel your credit cards, change all your passwords, and leave now." Confused, I asked what was wrong. Jake turned the screen toward me. What I saw made my blood run cold. Screenshots of my bank accounts, social security number, and a message to someone named Babe about draining our family's finances. My name is Elisa Reynolds, and at 65, I thought I knew a thing or two about life. After 38 years teaching second grade at Maple Creek Elementary, I retired to enjoy my golden years with Frank, my husband of 43 years. We live in a cozy 2-story home in Riverdale that we purchased 4 decades ago when the neighborhood was just developing. It's the same house where we raised our only son, Patrick. Frank and I always dreamed of having a big family, but complications after Patrick's birth meant he would be our only child. Perhaps that's why we poured everything into him, our love, our hopes, our dreams. Patrick grew into a fine young man, smart as a whip, with his father's charm and my determination. After college, he followed his childhood dream and joined the Army, making us burst with pride even as we worried for his safety. 5 years ago, Patrick brought home Amanda. I still remember that Sunday dinner. She walked in with a homemade apple pie and called me Mom before the evening was over. Amanda had glossy chestnut hair, a dazzling smile, and a way of making everyone feel special. She was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative, a job that impressed Frank with its stability and potential. I watched my son look at her with such adoration, and my heart swelled. After 3 previous girlfriends who never felt quite right, Amanda seemed perfect. Their wedding was small but beautiful, just family and close friends gathered at our local church. I cried when they exchanged vows, feeling truly blessed that Patrick had found someone who seemed to complement him so perfectly. Amanda's parents couldn't attend. She explained they had passed away in a car accident years earlier. My maternal instinct kicked in immediately, wanting to provide the family support she lacked. For the first few years, they lived across the country due to Patrick's military assignments. We saw them on holidays and video called weekly. Everything seemed wonderful, though sometimes I noticed small inconsistencies in Amanda's stories about her past. Once, she mentioned growing up in Seattle, though previously she'd talked about her childhood home in Boston. When I gently asked, she laughed it off, saying she'd moved around so much as a child that sometimes she mixed up the timeline. It seemed reasonable enough, and I dismissed my slight unease. 3 months ago, Patrick received deployment orders to Germany for a year. The timing couldn't have been worse. Amanda had just started a new job in pharmaceutical sales after they relocated to within an hour of our home. Rather than break her contract or manage alone, Amanda accepted our offer to move into our home temporarily. Frank and I were thrilled to have company, and it seemed like the perfect arrangement. At first, everything was lovely. Amanda cooked dinner twice a week, shared stories about her day, and seemed genuinely interested in our lives. She even suggested digitizing our old photo albums, offering to scan them herself since she had all the right equipment. I gratefully handed over decades of precious memories, touched by her thoughtfulness. Last week, Amanda came down with a terrible flu. I made her chicken soup, brought her tea with honey, and tended to her as I would my own daughter. When she mentioned her phone screen had cracked after dropping it in the bathroom, I immediately offered to take it to Jake at Quick Fix Electronics. Jake's family has known ours for over 20 years. His daughter Sarah was in Patrick's class all through school, and he's been our go-to for any technical problems. As I was leaving to take Amanda's phone for repair, I got a notification on my own phone. $500 had been withdrawn from my checking account. I frowned, thinking it must be a banking error. Frank and I keep careful track of our finances, especially since retirement, and neither of us had made such a withdrawal. I made a mental note to call the bank later and continued on my errand. I arrived at Jake's shop feeling optimistic about helping Amanda. She'd been so sweet since moving in, calling me mom and bringing me little gifts. Just yesterday, she'd presented me with a beautiful scarf, just because. I felt fortunate that Patrick had found someone who fit so seamlessly into our family. That optimism shattered the moment Jake showed me what he'd found on Amanda's phone. "Elisa, you need to see this," Jake said, his voice low and serious as he guided me to the back room of his repair shop. The cheerful bell above the door and the familiar smell of electronics seemed jarringly out of place with his grave expression. My hands trembled as Jake pulled up a folder of screenshots on Amanda's phone. There were images of my bank statements, social security card, passport, and even Frank's medical insurance information. Most disturbing were the text messages to someone saved as Babe, with details about our accounts, property values, and retirement savings. "We should empty their accounts next week," one message read. "The old lady trusts me completely now, and the husband is too focused on his health issues to notice anything." "Did you make copies of all their documents?" Babe had replied. "Everything. Plus, I have access to their home computer now. They don't even use passwords. These boomers are so easy." Jake scrolled through more messages discussing plans to clean them out before Patrick returned from deployment. "I found all this while running diagnostics," Jake explained. "The cracked screen was minor. I think she used it as an excuse to get you to bring it in rather than shipping it for repair. She probably never expected you'd bring it to someone who knows your family." My mind raced, trying to make sense of this betrayal. Jake helped me call my bank immediately to freeze our accounts and place fraud alerts on our credit. As I was speaking with the bank representative, another notification popped up on my phone. An attempt to transfer $15,000 from our savings account had been blocked due to the freeze. "She's trying to move money right now," Jake whispered, pointing to the notification. With Jake's help, I changed every password I could think of: email, banking, social media, everything. He photographed the evidence on Amanda's phone before repairing the screen as if nothing was amiss. "Don't confront her yet," Jake advised. "These messages suggest she's not working alone. You need to protect yourself and gather more evidence first." On the drive home, I called Frank. My hands shook so badly I had to pull over. "That's impossible," Frank said after I explained what I'd found. "Amanda adores you. There must be some misunderstanding." "Frank, I saw it with my own eyes. There were screenshots of our accounts, our personal information, everything. Maybe it's for some surprise she's planning with Patrick? Or maybe she's helping him organize our finances as a favor. You know how worried I've been about estate planning since my heart scare." I couldn't believe Frank was defending her, but his response made me doubt myself. Had I misinterpreted something? Was there an innocent explanation? Before reaching home, I checked our joint credit card through the banking app and discovered 3 unusual charges from that morning: an expensive electronics store, a jewelry shop, and a transfer to a payment app I'd never heard of, totaling over $2,000. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my shock had hardened into resolve. I needed to confront Amanda, evidence in hand. I found her in the living room, looking significantly better than when I'd left her that morning. The terribly sick woman was now doing yoga in front of the TV. "How are you feeling?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "So much better, Mom. That soup you made worked wonders." She folded herself into a perfect downward dog position. "Did Jake fix my phone?" "He did," I said, handing it to her. "Amanda, we need to talk about something concerning I found on our credit card statement today." Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly before settling into concern. "What's wrong?" "There are charges I don't recognize. Over $2,000 at places we don't shop." Amanda's face crumpled, tears filling her eyes with remarkable speed. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I should have told you right away." She grabbed my hands. "I was organizing a surprise anniversary party for you and Frank next month. Patrick asked me to help, and I accidentally used your card instead of mine when ordering some things. I realized right away and was going to tell you, but then I got so sick, and it slipped my mind." I stared at her, momentarily thrown. Frank and I had celebrated our anniversary 2 months ago. Amanda must have seen my confusion, because she quickly added, "Not your wedding anniversary, the anniversary of when you bought this house. Patrick mentioned how proud you both are of paying it off, and we wanted to celebrate 40 years in your family home." Before I could respond, she continued, her words tumbling out. "And those messages you probably saw on my phone. I'm so embarrassed. Patrick and I have this silly role-playing thing we do. He pretends to be Babe, and we act out these elaborate scenarios. It's this weird financial fantasy thing he's into." She blushed convincingly. "I know it's strange, but it spices things up when we're apart." I was speechless. Her explanation was so detailed, so ready. "I can't believe Jake invaded my privacy like that." Amanda's tears turned to indignation. "And I can't believe you'd think I would steal from you after everything you've done for me. Wait until Patrick hears that his mother thinks his wife is some kind of con artist." As she stormed upstairs, leaving me standing in the living room, doubt crept in. Had I jumped to terrible conclusions about my daughter-in-law? The charges could be explained by an anniversary party. The messages could be some private thing between her and Patrick I'd misunderstood. Maybe Jake and I had constructed an elaborate conspiracy theory out of innocent coincidences. Or maybe Amanda had just masterfully manipulated me. Again, that evening, Frank came home from his weekly golf game to find me sitting alone at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Amanda had been in her room for hours, occasionally making small sobbing sounds loud enough for me to hear downstairs. "What happened?" Frank asked, setting down his golf cap. "Amanda texted me that you accused her of stealing from us?" I tried to explain what Jake had found, but with each detail, Frank's expression grew more disapproving. "Elisa, do you hear yourself?" he finally interrupted. "You're accusing our daughter-in-law of being some master criminal based on messages you glimpsed on her phone? Messages she's already explained? But the bank withdrawals, which could easily be explained by this surprise party she mentioned. Or maybe she made a mistake with which card she was using for her own purchases. Have you considered that? What about the personal financial information on her phone? Our social security numbers? Our account numbers?" Frank sighed. "When Patrick deployed, he asked Amanda to help organize our estate planning. Remember? I mentioned it to you, but you were busy with your garden club. She's probably been gathering the information to help us create wills and power of attorney documents." Each explanation sounded plausible when Frank said it. Was I becoming paranoid in my old age? Had retirement left me looking for drama where none existed? "You need to apologize to her," Frank said firmly. "She's family, Elisa. And right now, she probably feels betrayed and alone, with Patrick thousands of miles away." Later that evening, a red-eyed Amanda emerged from her room when Frank called her down for dinner. I found myself apologizing profusely while she graciously accepted, squeezing my hand and assuring me she understood my confusion. "Family is everything to me," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "You and Frank are the parents I lost. I would never do anything to hurt you." We ate dinner together, Amanda suggesting we put the whole misunderstanding behind us. She proposed a special outing the next day, just the three of us to reconnect and heal. Throughout dinner, I noticed Amanda checking her phone under the table while maintaining animated conversation. Each time, her expression would flicker annoyance, calculation, satisfaction, before returning to warm engagement. After Amanda went to bed, claiming her flu symptoms were returning, Frank and I prepared for sleep in silence. I couldn't shake my unease, but Frank's certainty made me doubt myself. The next morning, while Amanda was in the shower, I made a decision that crossed a line I never thought I would. I ordered a small security camera disguised as a clock for the living room. When it arrived 2 days later, I installed it while Amanda was at a work meeting, telling Frank it was a new decorative piece I'd found on sale. I felt ashamed of my suspicion, but couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. The security camera connected to an app on my phone, allowing me to monitor our living room remotely. For 2 days, nothing unusual happened. Amanda was the perfect houseguest, helping with chores, engaging Frank in long conversations about his former business and bringing me little gifts. I began to think Jake and I had misinterpreted everything. Then on the third day, while supposedly at work, Amanda returned home unexpectedly. Through the app, I watched her enter our living room, looking carefully around before pulling out what appeared to be a second phone, not the one I'd taken for repair. "It's me," she said quietly into the phone. "We've got a problem." The old lady got suspicious, had my phone looked at by their family friend. She paced as she listened to the person on the other end. "No, I handled it. Turned on the waterworks, made up some story about a surprise party. The husband totally bought it. He's wrapped around my finger, but she's sharper than I thought." Another pause. "Of course I changed the passwords back. I have access to everything again. But we need to move faster. The military husband gets a 2-day leave next month, and I don't want him looking too closely at their accounts." She listened again, then laughed a harsh sound entirely different from her usual musical laughter. "Don't worry about her. I've already started suggesting to the husband that she's been forgetting things. Early dementia. By next week, he won't believe anything she says." I sat in my car in the supermarket parking lot, watching this unfold on my phone screen, my heart pounding. This wasn't paranoia. This was confirmation of my worst fears. That evening, I began researching Amanda Carter online, the name she had given us when she married Patrick. Nothing seemed amiss at first, until I tried searching for her previous address in Boston. The address didn't exist. Neither did the pharmaceutical company she claimed to work for before moving near us. I dug deeper, searching for obituaries matching her parents' names and the car accident she'd described. Nothing. It took 3 days of searching, but I finally found something, a small news article from Arizona about victims of identity fraud. Among the photos was a woman who looked remarkably like Amanda, but the caption identified her as Allison Turner, wanted in connection with multiple identity theft cases targeting military families. The article described how Turner and an accomplice would identify deployed service members, seduce them online or in person, and then systematically drain the financial resources of both the service member and their families. She had allegedly done this in 3 states already, disappearing before authorities could catch her. I printed the article, my hands shaking so badly I could barely operate the library's printer. This wasn't just about stealing our money anymore. This woman, whoever she was, had married my son under false pretenses. Everything about her was a lie. When I returned home, Frank was sitting with Amanda in the living room, both laughing over old family photos, the same albums I'd given her to digitize. "Frank, can I speak with you privately?" I asked. "Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Amanda," Frank replied, patting her hand affectionately. "We don't keep secrets in this family. It's about our banking," I improvised. "Some private matters." Frank sighed, but followed me to our bedroom. I showed him the article, explaining my research. "This is absolutely ridiculous," he said after scanning it. "This woman doesn't even look like Amanda. You're seeing things that aren't there, Elisa. Frank, please, just look closely." "No, you look," he interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically harsh. "You've been acting strange ever since Amanda moved in. Suspicious, forgetful, making wild accusations. I'm worried about you." "Forgetful? What are you talking about?" Frank's expression softened into concern. "Honey, yesterday you asked me the same question about dinner 3 times in 1 hour. Last week you left the stove on all night. Amanda's noticed it too. I hadn't done either of those things." A cold realization washed over me. Amanda was gaslighting both of us, making Frank believe I was losing my mental faculties. "There's nothing wrong with my memory," I insisted. "I've made an appointment for you with Dr. Walters," Frank said gently. "Amanda suggested it might be good to rule out any issues." "You discussed my health with her behind my back?" "She's concerned about you. We both are." Frank took my hands. "I've given Amanda access to our accounts, just in case something happens, or you get confused again. She's agreed to help manage things temporarily." My blood ran cold. While I'd been investigating her, Amanda had been systematically undermining my credibility and gaining control of our finances. I needed help, and I needed it fast. The next morning, I waited until both Frank and Amanda left the house before calling Jake. "I need your help," I said the moment he answered. "You were right about Amanda. She's not who she claims to be." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop across town, where I showed him everything I'd discovered. Jake brought copies of the screenshots from Amanda's phone and had done some investigating of his own. "I checked with a buddy who works in digital forensics," Jake explained. "The phone has been wiped and restored multiple times, which is unusual, and there's sophisticated tracking software installed." "What does that mean?" "It means she can monitor other devices on your home network. Your computers, your phones, if they're connected to your Wi-Fi, she can potentially access them." The realization made me dizzy. Our entire digital lives were compromised. "What about Patrick? Have you told him?" Jake asked. "I've tried calling the family support contact for his unit, but they said he's in a training exercise and can't be reached except for emergencies." I swallowed hard. When I tried to explain it was an emergency, the person I spoke with said Amanda had already contacted them about my confusion episodes and to expect calls from me making bizarre claims. Jake whistled low. "She's thought of everything." "Not everything," I said, pulling out my phone to show him the security camera footage. As we were watching the videos I'd collected, Jake suddenly stiffened. "Wait, go back to yesterday afternoon." I rewound the footage to show Amanda in our living room with a man I'd never seen before, tall, muscular, with short blonde hair. They were examining documents spread across our coffee table. "That's not your son, is it?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "No. Patrick has dark hair like mine. Who is that?" "I'd guess that's Babe," Jake said grimly. "Her real partner." The man in the video pointed to something on a document, and Amanda nodded. Then he pulled her into an embrace that left no doubt about their relationship. "They're not just after your accounts," Jake said, freezing the frame where the document was visible. "Look at these papers. Those look like loan applications." Jake was right. They appeared to be opening credit lines, loans, and possibly mortgages using our information. This was bigger than simply emptying our existing accounts. They were setting us up for massive, long-term fraud. "We need to go to the police," I said. "Let me call my friend first," Jake replied. "Officer Daniels has been with the department for 20 years. He'll know how to handle this properly." Officer Daniels agreed to meet us at the coffee shop. When he arrived, I recognized him immediately. His daughter had been in my second-grade class 15 years ago. "Mrs. Reynolds," he greeted me warmly before his expression turned serious. Jake filled me in on the basics. "I'm concerned about what you're describing." I showed him everything: the security footage, the news article identifying Allison Turner, the screenshots from Amanda's phone, and the evidence of financial manipulation. Officer Daniels took detailed notes, his frown deepening. "The problem is, Mrs. Reynolds, much of what you've described falls into murky legal territory. Your husband gave her access to your accounts willingly. The security camera in your living room was installed without knowledge of other household members, which raises privacy concerns." "But she's committing fraud," I protested. "And we'll investigate that," he assured me. "But we need to be careful. If she's as manipulative as you describe, she's already established groundwork suggesting you're experiencing cognitive decline." "I'm perfectly sound of mind." "I know that, Mrs. Reynolds. I remember how you helped Emily with her reading difficulties. You changed her life." His expression softened. "But we need irrefutable evidence that will stand up in court." As Officer Daniels was explaining what kind of evidence would be most helpful, my phone buzzed with a text from Frank. "Where are you? Amanda says you had an episode and wandered off. We're worried sick." I showed the message to Officer Daniels. "I've been gone less than 2 hours." And I left a note saying I was meeting a friend for coffee. "She's accelerating her timeline," Jake said. "She knows you're onto her." I returned home to find Frank pacing the living room, Amanda at his side with a perfectly composed expression of concern. "There you are," Frank exclaimed. "We were about to call the hospitals." I left a note on the kitchen counter. I said calmly. I went for coffee with Carol from my garden club. The lie came easily, necessary for self-protection. There was no note, Amanda said gently. Frank and I both checked everywhere. I knew I'd left a note. Amanda must have removed it. I'm fine, I insisted. Just needed some fresh air. Frank studied me with worry. You don't remember writing a note, do you? This is exactly what Dr. Walters warned us about. I realized with horror that Amanda had already taken Frank to see my doctor, our family physician for 20 years, and somehow manipulated that situation as well. Over the next few days, I pretended to accept their concerns about my mental state, taking the unnecessary vitamins Amanda suggested, and allowing Frank to drive me everywhere. Meanwhile, I carefully documented everything happening in our home, using the security camera and a small voice recorder Jake had given me. I noticed Frank becoming increasingly lethargic, sleeping more, seeming confused at times. Initially, I attributed it to stress. But one morning, I observed Amanda adding something to his coffee when she thought I wasn't looking. That night, I replaced Frank's usual glass of water by his bedside, with one I'd prepared myself and kept hidden. In the morning, I took the untouched glass, containing whatever Amanda had added, and placed it in a sealed bag. Jake delivered it to his friend at the police department for testing, while I began researching Amanda's access to Frank's heart medication. As a pharmaceutical sales representative, she claimed to understand his prescriptions better than we did, and had helpfully taken over managing his pill organizer weeks ago. While searching her room one day, when both she and Frank were out, I discovered an unmarked pill bottle containing capsules that looked similar to Frank's heart medication, but weren't identical. I photographed them without disturbing anything, then sent the images to our real pharmacist under the pretext of verifying our prescription. The response confirmed my worst fears. These are not the medication we dispensed. Do not consume these pills and bring them in immediately. Amanda wasn't just trying to discredit me or steal our money. She was slowly poisoning my husband. That same afternoon, I noticed a familiar-looking blonde man watching our house from a parked car down the street. Babe had moved from text messages to physical surveillance. We were running out of time. Frank, don't take your medicine today, I whispered urgently the next morning when Amanda was in the shower. We were alone in our bedroom, and I had only minutes. What? Why not? He asked groggily, reaching for the pill organizer. Please trust me, just this once. Skip your heart medicine today. Frank stared at me, confusion evident in his eyes. Did Dr. Walters say something? No. I faltered, knowing any mention of Amanda would trigger his defense of her. I just have a feeling. Please, Frank. For 43 years, you've trusted my instincts. Trust me now. Something in my expression must have reached him, because he slowly nodded. Just for today. I quickly hid the pill organizer in my pocket as the shower shut off. Throughout the day, I watched Frank closely. By afternoon, his fog seemed to be lifting. His eyes were clearer, his movements more certain. Whatever Amanda had been giving him was metabolizing out of his system. I feel strange, Frank commented, as we sat on the back porch while Amanda was on a work call inside. More awake somehow. What do you remember about the past 2 weeks? I asked carefully. Frank frowned, concentrating. It's all a bit blurry. I remember you being confused a lot. Amanda helping with our finances. He paused. But now that I think about it, I can't recall specific instances of you being confused. Because there weren't any, I said softly. Frank, I need you to listen carefully. I explained everything as succinctly as possible: the discovery on Amanda's phone, the evidence of her true identity, the unauthorized financial activities, and finally, my suspicion about his medication. Instead of immediate dismissal, Frank was silent for a long moment. You're saying our daughter-in-law is poisoning me and stealing our life savings? Yes, that's... He trailed off, then surprised me. Actually, that would explain some things I couldn't make sense of. What things? Yesterday, I got a call from Hartford National about a mortgage application I supposedly submitted. I told Amanda about it, and she said it must be identity theft, and she'd handle it. He rubbed his forehead. And last week, I found a strange phone in the garage when I was looking for my golf clubs. Amanda appeared almost instantly and said it was a work phone she thought she'd lost. Hope surged within me. You believe me? I'm not sure what I believe yet, Frank said carefully. But I know you, Elisa. You're not a person who invents elaborate conspiracies. If you're this concerned, there must be something to it. It wasn't full belief, but it was a start. That evening, I contacted my old friend Sharon, who had been a legal secretary for 40 years before retiring. She lived 3 towns over, far enough that Amanda wouldn't know her. I arranged to meet her the next day while Amanda believed I was at a doctor's appointment, one she had scheduled for me. You need to document everything, Sharon advised when we met. Bank statements, medical records, photographs, recordings, anything that shows a pattern of deception. And you need to secure your original identification documents immediately. Most are in our home safe, I said. Which she probably has access to by now, Sharon pointed out. You need to remove them and store them somewhere else. Sharon helped me understand what constituted admissible evidence and how to properly document the timeline of events. She also suggested contacting Adult Protective Services, as what Amanda was doing constituted elder abuse. What about Patrick? I asked. The question that had been haunting me. How do we tell him his wife is a criminal who married him for access to his family's money? Sharon squeezed my hand. One step at a time. First, let's make sure you and Frank are safe. When I returned home, I began implementing our plan. I pretended to accept my diagnosis of early dementia, apologizing to Amanda for my paranoia and thanking her for her patience. This performance seemed to put her at ease, making her less vigilant around me. Frank, still not entirely convinced, but unwilling to take chances with his health, began secretly disposing of the pills Amanda gave him while continuing to show the same symptoms of lethargy and confusion. Together, we created a hidden folder of evidence: bank statements showing unauthorized transactions, recordings of Amanda's conversations with Babe, whose real name we discovered was Troy, and photographs of the suspicious pills compared with Frank's legitimate medication. I managed to contact the military chaplain associated with Patrick's unit, explaining we had a sensitive family emergency without details. The chaplain arranged a secure call with Patrick, scheduled for the following week. Meanwhile, Amanda's behavior grew increasingly erratic as her plans accelerated. She began suggesting that Frank update his will, casually mentioning that in case of your mental decline, Elisa, Patrick would want Amanda to have decision-making authority. Frank, now fully alert and increasingly suspicious, pretended to agree, while secretly consulting with our longtime family attorney to protect our assets. The most shocking discovery came when Jake helped us recover deleted files from our home computer. Amanda had installed software that recorded our keystrokes, capturing passwords and personal information. More disturbingly, we found a folder containing detailed information on 7 other military families across the country, her previous or potential future victims. This isn't just about us, I realized. This is her entire operation. Frank nodded grimly. We need to stop her before she does this to another family. With Jake's technical help, we set up a trap. I casually mentioned to Amanda that we had a safety deposit box at Riverdale Community Bank containing family jewelry and emergency cash, a complete fabrication. Frank's grandmother's diamonds are in there, I said wistfully. Worth at least $50,000. I've been meaning to take them out and have them reset for years. Amanda's eyes lit up with poorly concealed interest. Maybe I could help with that, as a surprise for your anniversary? That would be wonderful, I said, purposely adding. The key is in Frank's desk drawer, and I have the account number written in my address book. That night, our security camera captured Amanda searching Frank's desk and photographing the fake key and account information we'd planted. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait for her to spring it. The secure call with Patrick was the hardest conversation of my life. Mom, what's going on? His familiar face on the computer screen looked tired but alert. The chaplain said it was urgent. I took a deep breath. Frank's hand steady on my shoulder. Patrick, there's no easy way to say this. We have reason to believe Amanda is not who she claims to be. His expression shifted from confusion to concern as I carefully outlined what we'd discovered, showing him the evidence we'd gathered. I feared disbelief, anger, or outright rejection. Instead, after a long silence, Patrick said, I was afraid something like this might be happening. You were? Frank and I exchanged shocked glances. Patrick ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. Things haven't added up for a while. Phone calls where background noises didn't match where she said she was. Money missing from our joint account that she couldn't explain. References to childhood memories that changed each telling. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. Because I wanted to be wrong, he said simply. Because I loved her, or who I thought she was. The pain in his voice was unbearable. My protective instincts flared. This woman had not only tried to steal our money, but had broken my son's heart. We have a plan, Frank said, outlining our trap with the fictional safety deposit box. But we need to move quickly. She's becoming more aggressive. Patrick's military training kicked in as he helped us refine our approach, identifying weaknesses and suggesting improvements. By the end of our call, we had a solid strategy. I've requested emergency leave, Patrick told us. I'll be home in 3 days. Don't confront her until I'm there. After the call ended, Frank turned to me with newfound determination. I've been a fool, Elisa. I should have trusted you from the beginning. She manipulated both of us, I assured him, though his words healed something that had been broken between us. For the next 2 days, we maintained our charade, Frank continuing to act sedated and confused, me playing the concerned but increasingly forgetful wife. Amanda grew bolder, making barely concealed phone calls to Troy about their plans to wrap things up. On the 3rd day, she made her move. Elisa, Amanda said sweetly over breakfast, I was thinking we should go to the bank today. Frank mentioned you've been worried about your grandmother's jewelry in the safety deposit box. Why don't we check on it for peace of mind? That's a wonderful idea, I agreed, noting how she'd twisted the narrative to make it seem like my idea. Frank, would you like to come? I'm not feeling well enough, Frank said, right on cue. But you two go ahead. The fresh air will do you good, Elisa. Amanda drove us to Riverdale Community Bank, chatting amicably about nothing important. As we entered the bank, I noticed a familiar blonde man already inside, pretending to fill out deposit slips. Troy had joined the party. What they didn't know was that Jake, Officer Daniels, and 2 other police officers were already positioned throughout the bank, alerted by our prearranged text message. Our family attorney was also present, along with the bank manager, who had been briefed on the situation. We'd like to access safety deposit box 483, Amanda told the teller, presenting the fake key and account information. Of course, the teller replied smoothly, if you'll both follow me to the vault area. As we were led down the hallway, Troy fell in behind us, maintaining distance, but clearly part of the plan. The teller led us into a private viewing room where safety deposit box contents could be examined. Once inside, Amanda's demeanor changed instantly. Wait in the hall, she instructed me sharply. I need to check something first. But it's my family's jewelry, I protested, playing my part. Just do as you're told, she snapped, dropping the sweet daughter-in-law act entirely. She signaled to Troy, who had entered behind us and now blocked the doorway. Actually, came a voice from the connecting room. I think my mother should stay. Patrick stepped through the door, still in his military uniform from the flight. The color drained from Amanda's face. Patrick, you're supposed to be in Germany. Surprise, he said coldly. Though I think I'm the one who's been surprised, Amanda. Or should I call you Allison? Troy moved toward the exit, but the door opened to reveal Officer Daniels and another officer. Troy Beckman, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. What followed was chaos, Amanda screaming that I was senile and making up stories, Troy attempting to flee, only to be tackled by Patrick and Officer Daniels, bank customers, staring in shock. Through it all, I stood perfectly still, watching the elaborate house of cards Amanda had built collapse around her. "You stupid old woman," she spat, as handcuffs were placed around her wrists. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I've done this for years. No one ever believes the confused grandma." "Except this confused grandma has everything on tape," I replied calmly, pointing to the small recorder in my purse, including what you just said. As the police led them away, Amanda suddenly stopped, turning to face me with a venomous glare. "You want to know why I picked your family? Your precious husband Frank fired my father 20 years ago from his construction company. Dad lost everything our house, his self-respect. He drank himself to death, while Frank Reynolds built his perfect life with his perfect family." Frank, who had arrived with Jake, stepped forward. "What was your father's name?" "David Turner," she snarled. "You wouldn't even give him a recommendation after 15 years of service." Recognition dawned on Frank's face. David Turner was fired for stealing materials from job sites and endangering workers by cutting safety corners. He was given multiple warnings. "Liar!" she shouted as the officers pulled her away. "This isn't over." But it was. Amanda, or Allison, and Troy were charged with multiple felonies across several states. The evidence we'd gathered, combined with the files recovered from our computer, provided a solid case against them. More shocking was the discovery that they had victimized 7 other military families across the country, emptying retirement accounts and taking out fraudulent loans that left their victims financially devastated. In the days that followed, our lives slowly began to rebuild. The bank worked with us to secure our accounts and restore fraudulent transactions. Our family attorney helped us untangle the legal web Amanda had created, including loan applications and credit lines opened in our names. Patrick, though heartbroken, found solace in helping other victims of Amanda and Troy's schemes. His military background proved invaluable in navigating the complex systems needed to restore their financial security. For Frank and me, the ordeal brought a new appreciation for each other. The trust that had momentarily fractured was rebuilt stronger than before. "I will never doubt your instincts again," Frank promised one night as we sat on our porch swing. "You saved us, Elisa. You saved our family." I squeezed his hand, watching the sunset paint our familiar neighborhood in golden hues. We saved ourselves. Together. 6 months after Amanda and Troy's arrest, Frank and I sat in the courtroom for their sentencing. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the extensive evidence against them. "The court has rarely seen such a calculated, heartless scheme targeting vulnerable families," she declared. "Particularly reprehensible is the deliberate exploitation of military families during deployment, the drugging of victims, and the psychological manipulation employed to isolate victims from support systems." Amanda stared straight ahead, her face a mask of indifference. Troy kept his eyes fixed on the floor. "Allison Turner and Troy Beckman, this court sentences you each to 18 years in federal prison for multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, elder abuse, and administering controlled substances without consent." As they were led away, Amanda turned to give me one final venomous glare. I met her gaze steadily, refusing to look away. Her power over our family was broken. Outside the courthouse, several other victims approached us. An elderly couple from Florida, a middle-aged woman from Texas, a young man supporting his grandfather. All had similar stories of manipulation, gaslighting, and financial devastation at the hands of Amanda and Troy. "How did you catch them when no one else could?" asked the woman from Texas, her eyes still haunted by the experience. "I listened to my instincts," I replied simply, "and I had people who eventually believed me. In the months that followed, I channeled my energy into creating a support network for the victims. With Patrick's help, we established a foundation providing financial counseling, legal assistance, and emotional support for families recovering from similar fraud schemes. Frank, fully recovered from the effects of the medication Amanda had been giving him, became passionate about educating seniors about financial protection. He gave talks at retirement communities and senior centers, sharing our story as a cautionary tale while emphasizing that seeking help wasn't a sign of weakness. Trust your gut, he always concluded. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Patrick took extended leave from the military to heal and reassess. The psychological impact of discovering his marriage was a fraud designed to exploit his family left deep wounds. He moved back home temporarily, the three of us finding comfort in rebuilding our family unit. "How do you trust again after something like this?" he asked one evening as we worked together in the garden. I considered the question carefully, patting soil around a new rosebush. You start small. You trust the sun to rise. You trust the seasons to change. You trust yourself to recognize truth when you see it. And eventually, you trust people again? The right people, I nodded. The ones who earn it through consistency and honesty. The ones who show up when it matters. Our financial recovery was gradual, but steady. The bank restored the fraudulent transactions, and the FBI helped recover some of the money Amanda and Troy had hidden in offshore accounts. Our home was safe, our retirement secured, though the process of fixing the damage to our credit took time and patience. More difficult was healing the psychological wounds. I found myself double-checking locked doors, questioning innocent interactions with strangers, startling at unexpected sounds. A therapist specializing in trauma helped me understand these were normal responses to what we'd experienced. "You're not paranoid," she assured me. "Your trust was profoundly violated. It takes time to rebuild your sense of safety." One unexpected positive outcome was the strengthening of our community connections. Jake and his family became regular dinner guests. Officer Daniels and his wife joined our neighborhood watch program. Sharon's legal knowledge proved invaluable as we helped other victims navigate their recovery. The Military Family Support Office implemented new verification protocols based on our experience, creating additional safeguards for deployed service members and their families. Patrick worked closely with them, turning his personal pain into systemic improvement. A year after the arrests, we held a gathering in our backyard, a celebration of resilience attended by family, friends, and several other survivors of Amanda and Troy's schemes. The atmosphere was one of cautious joy, of lives being reclaimed step by step. During the party, Patrick introduced us to Lauren, a fellow officer he'd met during his extended leave. Unlike Amanda's overwhelming charm, Lauren had a quiet authenticity that put us at ease immediately. She asked thoughtful questions and listened genuinely to the answers, her interest never feeling performative. "She seems wonderful," I told Patrick later, as we cleaned up after the guests had left. "She is," he agreed. "But we're taking things slowly. Very slowly." "That sounds wise," I said, understanding his caution. "Mom," Patrick paused, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Thank you for trusting your instincts, for fighting for us when no one believed you. You saved more than our money. You saved all of us." I hugged my son tightly, remembering the little boy who once thought I could fix anything. In this case, perhaps I had. Later that night, Frank and I sat on our porch swing, his arm around my shoulders as crickets chirped in the summer darkness. "You know what I've learned from all this?" Frank mused. "What's that?" "That true strength isn't about physical power or even intelligence. It's about persistence. You never gave up, even when everyone, including me, doubted you." I rested my head against his shoulder. I couldn't give up. Too much was at stake. "You've always been the backbone of this family," he continued. "But now everyone else can see what I've always known." We sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink in the yard. The home that Amanda had tried to take from us felt more securely ours than ever before. Life would never return to what it had been before Amanda entered our lives. The experience had changed us all permanently. But as I sat with my husband of 44 years, our son healing and finding his way forward, I recognized that some changes had been for the better. We were more vigilant, but also more appreciative of genuine connections. We understood the value of trusting our instincts and the importance of being trustworthy for others. We recognized the strength in vulnerability, and the courage in asking for help. Most importantly, we had learned that even in our 60s, we could face the unimaginable and emerge stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected than before. As for me, Elisa Reynolds, former second-grade teacher and current grandmother warrior, I had discovered reserves of strength, determination, and courage I never knew I possessed. The woman who had taken her daughter-in-law's phone for a simple repair had emerged from that experience transformed, more confident in her instincts, more protective of her loved ones, and more aware of her own capacity to fight back against deception and manipulation. Some might call it a terrible ordeal. I prefer to think of it as a powerful reminder. We are never too old to stand up for ourselves, to protect what matters, and to begin again. Have you ever had to trust your instincts when everyone around you thought you were wrong? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the strength to persevere comes from knowing others have walked similar paths. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more experiences that might help you navigate your own challenges. And share this with someone who might need to be reminded to trust their gut. It could be the nudge they need during a difficult time. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, it's never too late to fight for what you know is right.